What's up, what's up, what's up, everybody? This is back with Omnic Lab yet again for another week. Finally, Andres has got his weekends free. I'm here on a nice Sunday morning in Japan, and this is episode 173. We're talking about the barrier nerfs on PTR and the buffs to the live server when you want to play some Baptiste. My name's Robin. Joining me, as always, is Andres Gomez from Georgia. What's up, Andres?
What's up? I'm super happy. Like you said, I have my weekends free, so I feel super nice. It kind of feels weird because I have like all this free time now. This whole 2 days that I didn't have before. So it feels good though. And you're super rested, not in a rush because you don't have to go to work tomorrow. So I'm hoping that it shows in today's episode. My throat's a little rusty over here. It's getting cold in Georgia. We got hit with this cold front, but aside from that, we got a fantastic new patch with fantastic new notes. So even though they said or they didn't announce anything at BlizzCon about any changes, we got some massive changes over here. So brace yourselves,
Yeah,
boys.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited to talk about this stuff today because we finally had, it seems like a very calculated PTR that they went about with pretty exact numbers. And then we also have the return of armor that we always like talking about because it's extremely technical and keeps our listeners without causing them to go to sleep. So we're going to try to break that down in maybe a little bit more of a meaningful way for those of you out there that are maybe not really too geared in that sort of thing. But I think where we want to start is a quick announcement. Okay, so the quick announcement is game night is going to be on the 29th of November. And as a lot of you may know, this is Black Friday at the end of the day when most of you will probably be going to bed early from staying up late, or maybe you're going to bed in the mid-afternoon and then waking up for game night. I'm not sure, but up to you what you end up doing. We wish everyone in the American region a happy Thanksgiving as well as a good time with their family on Black Friday, finding discounts, and good luck on Cyber Week or Cyber Monday to get some more deals on Amazon. I know I'll be looking for that. And keep an eye on the Blizzard store. There's almost always something going on as well. Usually they do like a daily deal type of thing. So you'll get like a Monday deal, a Tuesday deal, Thursday deal, all that stuff leading in and maybe even after. So keep an eye there. But then the reason we're doing this is just to keep our consistency. So it may not be as populous as other activities, but if I know our players out there, they're pretty dedicated to Overwatch, so they'll be there. We'll try to run something, and I will be around because that's not a national holiday for me anymore. So I'll be there. It's a Saturday morning for me, and hopefully we can run a couple games for you guys out there. Second up is our Patreon. Our Patreon has a little bit of a dip going on that you guys can upcharge yourselves to sign up and help out your potentially one of your favorite Overwatch podcasts to get some free coaching associated with your pledge. If you pledge at the $2.50 level, we will schedule a coaching session with you. Andres, do you want to give a little bit more details on that? I know we talk about it every week, but in case someone's new, maybe we can break it down for them.
Yeah, if you guys want to maybe practice your Overwatch, get to know us a little bit more personally, and maybe get a third person perspective on your gameplay, I think it would be a great little practice for you guys. We've had some really good success with a lot of people signing up. I imagine the end of this month might be a little bit slower with the holidays coming up, everyone going to their families and everything else. But that being said, Rob and I actually have plenty of free time on the weekends now. So we can schedule a few things before the holidays hit. I know that Rob has a few of them scheduled in a row, and I'm doing a couple next week. So if you guys are interested in this, we love doing it with you guys. We love getting to know you guys. And we've developed a little bit of a passion for coaching. Is nice. Looking at somebody else's gameplay and trying to see through the things that they're doing and see what they really need and what they really need to improve. And sometimes it can be eye-opening for you guys too. Maybe things that you had never even thought about. And then when they get pointed out, I was like, oh, I do that. Huh, I shouldn't be doing that. You're right. So yeah, it's been super cool. And hopefully we can get some of you guys to show up for Christmas.
And with regards to our last announcement, now that Andres has got his weekends back, that means that you guys have potentially, for the first time in a long time, a standard schedule for Omnic Lab when we're not planning with guests. So that being said, that means there's no more weekly in the morning sessions for you guys. This is probably going to be in the morning for me from now on, and maybe late nights for Andres on a Friday or a Saturday potentially. Maybe even a Sunday if I have a Monday off coming through. But in general, that's what we're going to be looking to do from now on for recordings, is try to do a Friday night or a Saturday night to record Omnic Lab from now on. And obviously, because we have the game nights on Friday nights, if it falls on that day, we will be sure to jump right into game night following the show. All right. I think that's pretty much it for the announcements. We don't have a set in stone time yet, but we can tell you that the weekends are where you're going to want to anticipate the show, unless there's a guest, in which case it might flex for our guests in some stretches. But this is usually the time that we wanted to get our guests in the first place. That was why it's so hard to get working. Is it would have to be mornings for them, evenings for me, or the other way around. So international schedules, ladies and gentlemen. It's a wonder why the weekends work so well. So let's move on and talk about the live patch that we didn't get to talk about last week because of our friends talking about Overwatch 2 and BlizzCon announcements. So first and foremost, starting with Season 19, we did cover some of this, but there is a new map pool of 12 maps, 3 in each mode, including hybrid. And the map pool you can find up on the website or on the patch notes in your launcher if you're looking for it. I will try to find a link for this in the show notes, but it's probably better off just to tell you to go check out your launcher or Google current patch notes. But this went live. Let's see if there's a date on here. Yeah, November the 5th, this went live, and this is also going to have the map pool for assault maps. You got Hanamura, Anubis, and Volskaya. Hybrid, Hollywood, Eichenwald, Kings Row. You can't have a map pool without Kings Row if you're going to do a map pool in the first place, let's be honest. And you have Nepal, Lijiang, and Busan as the control map, so no Ilios. And also we have Escort being Route 66, Gibraltar, and Havana. That's right, folks. No Paris, no Horizon, no Rage. So don't worry about that anymore.
No rage.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Finally, we get seasons with a limited map pool, and I think it was needed, right? We were getting a huge amount of maps, and at this point, especially for any new players, or players that are not as super familiar with all of them, it gets super overwhelming. I know that me trying to teach Kristen, it gets really hard because she only gets to play the maps maybe once every couple of play sessions. So there's no way for her to quickly learn those. So I'm glad that they're limiting that. And it also helps you narrowing down the maps, right? Some strategies might develop a little bit sooner or faster in certain maps because people are playing them more often. We might not have to see only 5% of this map being played of your time. So I'm glad this change is going through. Check out this list. Make sure you're familiar with it because those are the maps you're going to be playing in.
Yeah, we definitely touched on this last week with Blevins and Deathblow about how good this is. And I just wanted to say, like, as a kind of a side note on that, is sometimes rank kind of feels monotonous. And I know that when I first started playing a lot of Overwatch the first time, Andres and I were trying to learn the game. We're trying to learn all the heroes, what they do, try to break it down for you guys. So what we ended up doing is we kind of hit the whole shotgun approach. You're like, let's play all of the heroes. Let's learn all the stuff. Let's try to get everything in our back pocket. But for the general player base, it's not really a good idea to do that sort of thing because you're kind
It's
of
very
a
time
jack of all trades,
consuming.
master of nothing. And yeah, you kind of need to put the 100 to 1,000 hours worth of something to really master it. And if you're doing 100 hours, and you're splitting it all up and not really focusing on something, you kind of really don't get much progress. We talked about this before, but limiting variables helps you practice. And even though it might have a little bit of monotony involved, if you can focus on limiting your variables, limiting the heroes you play, limiting your map pool, learning the map, learning that hero, you're going to be much better off. And limiting this pool is really, really good for learning and improving in the game. And we might even just see a overall skill boost in the game for people that like to play regularly.
What would be interesting if they match some of these releases or some of the map pool decisions with Overwatch League, so that you're watching the maps that you're playing in that competitive season. And I know that the seasons don't line up like 1-to-1, but I think it
Right.
would be interesting if for the most part they try to keep it in line with what's happening in Overwatch League, because then you would have that 1-to-1 comparison, right? Oh, I see that they're doing this in Legion Tower, and I get to play Legion Tower this season, so I'm definitely gonna put that in my pocket to try that out.
Yeah. As of 10 days ago, my time, or 9 days ago, U.S. time, at the moment of the recording, November 7th, season 19 has officially begun. So if you haven't played since then, make sure you log in, get your points, and keep moving, because right now there's a new Mercy event for the 9 wins and watching 6 hours worth of content. The whole typical spiel. You get sprays, you get an icon, you get a skin, and it's really cool. She's got specs on, she's got a little bit of a slightly different hairstyle, lab coat, stethoscope, the works, new boots, new look, same Mercy. You guys can enjoy a lot of that stuff if you like playing Mercy. I know I'm trying to grind for it because I have literally everything on hers, except for this right now. So I have like 2 wins left, and I think I finished up all my hours of streaming, like AFK stream watching this weekend. So that's been nice. But that event will end, I believe, by the end of the month. I don't have those details on me right now, but we'll mention it when it gets closer to time when it's expiring, because you do have quite a bit of time for this event. Now, this season 19 stuff that went live on the 7th is that the seasons now are actually adjusting. So you will get every season instead will be starting at it's like every other month, from the first of every other month to the first Thursday of every other month. So I don't know really why they're doing this. Maybe it's just so it's like a consistent day rather than a consistent date. That way it's kind of on a normal rotation with leap year. I think we're actually in a leap year this year or next year, something like that. So this will kind of be weird, but they're going to do this consistently. So some seasons may actually be longer and some might be shorter by a week or two. So
To
just keep
be
that in mind.
honest,
First Thursday.
to be honest, I like that way of putting dates because for game nights, for example, it's worked because then we don't have to reschedule every time, and people are wondering like, oh, what day it's gonna be. If people know it's on the first Thursday of every month, then it doesn't matter what the date is. You just know, right? Like, oh, it's the first week of
Right.
this new month. Oh, this Thursday is the reset of the season. We don't have to keep track of anything. I like this way of thinking about things, especially for somebody who is terrible at dates. I need like calendars and reminders, and then my Google Calendar being like, "Hey, today you have this," or I completely forget.
And the cool thing is they said they are starting the season later in the day on that day to correspond with developers' availability throughout the day. And so season 19, this particular season started at 10 o'clock Pacific time, PM, or sorry, AM, and 13 o'clock, or basically 1300 hours is 1 p.m. Eastern time on the 7th.
There
For
you
those
have
of
it.
you in Japan, because you guys are in standard time, that's about 3 a.m. for me on the 8th is when this new season launches. So not very globally acceptable for if you're playing on NA servers, but it's okay. Don't worry about it. The next thing here we got is some new workshop features. I'll just list these off real quick. Variable renaming. You have more variables, up to 128 that you can add in. So more options, more things to kind of add to change things up. And you have an autosave preset. This is going to be really, really good for those of you that get the games crashing or running on maybe a weaker machine. That's really, really nice. There's new workshop values called custom strings. You can add in all tank heroes, all support heroes, all damage healers, a map, and a current map option for those workshop values. Hero updates. This is just super simple. The Ice Wall from May, the Immortality Field from BAP, the Grav Flux from Sigma will now also more heavily prefer an edge to place these items rather than placing them as far away as possible. So usually it's kind of like a coding thing. If you place the wall and you hit it on an edge of something, it'll just push it over to like the next available location where it can go. And now it's going to prefer the closest ledge. So it's kind of like a registration thing. It just feels more fluid when you're using it. It's kind of the idea here. Just quality of life.
I will say a lot of these abilities, like the ice wall, the immortality field, or Reaper's teleport, have been feeling really polished lately. Especially Reaper's
Yeah.
teleport feels so good and responsive. I can use it in the middle of the battle and still usually teleport exactly where I want to go. It's very rare that you can do it, and if it is, it's because of the range now. So um, they're feeling really polished at this point. I like how those characters are feeling. I haven't tried Maze as well since the live patch. I really need to. But yeah, it seems like overall, just like roughing the or not roughing the edges, but polishing the edges that are a little rough in these characters.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to really read some of these patch notes sometimes. Like they just seem super obtuse and not really like approachable for general player base. Like this is super detailed. Like what does this mean? This just means they're trying to make the abilities register a bit easier and more clean when you're transitioning between like a high ground and a low ground or like an edge or a small place, that
Hmm.
type of thing.
And they feel like more like what you want to do, right? They're trying to
It's
hone
like
it
more
in.
natural.
Yeah, more natural. Like when you do a wall there, you definitely don't want it to end up in this weird window up there, but like in this ledge. So that's sort of like decision making for the I guess
Yeah.
the engine.
Pretty much, yeah. So, the next thing on the list is the one thing that we really want to talk about, which is Bap's biotic launcher. This is his primary fire, not his secondary heal. The recovery time decreased from 0.45 to 0.36 seconds. They removed the random spread that happens on his 3-shot burst in the assault rifle, and his damage fall off range has been extended by 25 meters before it kicks in. So now it's at 25 meters instead of 20 meters. And if you remember, there was another DPS hero that underwent such change similar to this outside of the random spread thing, which was your boy McCree. So now he could fire faster between shots and faster and fire further with higher damage. And the random spread thing went with Orisa. So let me tell you, you feel more accurate. You're hitting more shots. Your shots do more damage because when they're further away, and you have more chance to shoot. So it just means that it's like I hear you like Bap. Why don't we put some more natural Baptiste play into your Baptiste play? And see how it feels.
Bap is feeling good. I will say I was playing with him earlier and he hits hard. I will say if you have good aim with him and he can track, you're gonna be really liking these changes. Your range just got increased. Your bullets feel really responsive. If you are more of a spammy kind of person, you might find yourself at least adapting at first. Maybe not hitting as many shots because the spread would sort of be good for that spam, right? When you're just aiming randomly. But anyway, that's not the way you want to be aiming anyway with Baptiste. So I think that this is rewarding the right type of aim with him anyway. So he feels really good. If you're a Baptiste player, you're rejoicing right now.
It gives you like a lot more of a threat range, I think, and it feels good to have threat range as Bap because sometimes you kind of felt a bit exposed, and a hero that can kind of get access to going on high ground with the boots, the exo boots is really 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 handy. So you can even pop up into a vision of something that doesn't have vision of you, and then shoot them a couple times on your way down. And the recovery speed, sometimes you can actually get 6 shots off by the time your whole leap is completed, and that's a big change. Another thing too with this is we're going to be talking about just in like maybe 2 or 3 minutes. We're going to be talking about the barrier changes, but this is kind of honestly, I felt like this is one of the heroes that's pretty stable as a inclusion for a lot of these team compositions in the upper levels of the ladder right now. So Baptiste is used a lot, and this actually helps quite a bit with the barrier damage issues because you can fire more. Your fall off damage is further, so you can shoot barriers faster and weave your heals in between your shots as Baptiste. So it's really really helpful for destroying barriers if you're running a BAP. At least until we get to the other changes. Next up, I'll probably ask Andres about this one because I don't really play a whole lot of Torb, but Molten Core, the cost just got reduced by a flat 10%. So you can get Molten Core easier and faster now.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, he really needs molten core. I think it's probably them looking at the numbers after they increase the time it takes for you to build up your ultimate, right? Recently all the characters had a flat increase across the board on how fast you can build them. And maybe it was looking like Torb was struggling a little bit, lagging behind the rest and really just not getting it at least fast enough to ever be impactful, right? If you can't get your ultimate soon enough after enough battles happen, then your impact in the entire game kind of diminishes quite a bit. So I think this is just them looking at numbers because yeah, nobody was really asking for this one. This one seems like more of an internal change.
Yeah.
There's a ton of bug fixes and workshop additions, but we can probably just skip those. Those are not
Yeah.
super relevant to anything we need.
Anytime we get bug fixes, I literally just scroll to where Doomfist is and see if there's anything relevant, and then that's it. That's usually how I look for bug fixes because he's the one that's the most bugged. um, there, there is one thing I think that they mentioned at BlizzCon that I'm not sure if it's in this patch or in the PTR. I think it's on the PTR now. I don't think it's out yet, but it's the um between modes. So like instead of kicking out to skirmish while
That
you're
is going
queuing,
to be the next patch. Yes, there's
that's
a
the next
feature
patch.
that
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's
that's
on
the next
PTR right
patch.
now.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll catch that here in a second because I almost forgot about this. Andres, did we talk about high precision mouse input last time with anyone?
I don't think so.
This is something if you have a nicer gaming mouse that has if you just check your box or go online and search your mouse, see if it has a polling rate, POLLING, a polling rate of 1,000 milliseconds. If it does have 1,000 milliseconds and you have a nicer PC, like a pretty good um, graphics card and RAM setup, I would highly encourage you to turn this on because it will make your aim feel a bit smoother, especially if you're able to play on a 144 hertz monitor or higher. You'll really feel a difference there. But this, I basically dumbed down a whole long discussion. If you want to go to the PTR, you want to go check it out. There's a whole link about all this details that you should go
It's a
check out. But
new
it's really cool.
option for the game.
Yes, it's a new option that basically sets it up so that when you move your mouse left to right, um, it will give you kind of more input locations where the mouse can kind of between frames, you can see the mouse cursor moving. It's
Gotcha.
kind of hard to describe, but they describe it really well in the post. And
Do you
it's really
remember
kind of,
what the option is called?
it's called a high precision mouse input, and you just turn it on. It's a checkbox.
Cool.
It's really, really neat. And they talked about it at a developer panel at BlizzCon, but it was really complicated. And even after reading the post a couple times, I still don't quite understand it. I just understand that if you're at higher frame rate monitor or higher hertz rate monitor and you have a PC that can handle it, you should turn it on. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. Let's get to the fun stuff, Andres, shall we? Let's talk about barrier nerfs because this is the cool stuff.
Let's do it.
All right. So the first thing on the list is I need to click the link because I didn't actually have it pulled up. Okay. So the while you wait is now overtaking the skirmish mode. Instead, while you wait, you can either, like right now, you can either sit in menus and play a different game like chess online or poker online while you're waiting for your game, or jump into a skirmish. Now you can go into the practice range, you can do skirmish again, you can do a death match, or you can select a custom game, and you can even allow players into your custom game who are also in matchmaking. In each of these options, the people that you queue with in your group will also join you. That's right. You can go into the practice range with friends now. It's the first time ever that you can go into the practice range with a friend and test damage numbers. This is really, really, really cool for me when we get a new hero, especially. You can hop in there. You can give them a damage boost on Mercy. You can do something else. You can check up on like what their numbers are at different ranges. It's really, really, really useful. Andres,
This is super cool. I'm glad that they added this. I think before it just wasn't as needed because the queue times were not as long, but now with roll queue, queue times have actually become a problem. And I think that Jeff Kaplan a while ago had anticipated this. He said that his major concern with adding roll queue wasn't necessarily balancing or, part of the community not agreeing, but it was increasing queue times, right? Because I guess they would see the internal numbers and they could see, yep, people queue up as DPS, or DPS is what they play the most. Tanks and healers are going to struggle a little bit. And sure enough, that is how it's turned out. If you want to play DPS, it's a minimum of 5 minutes, which honestly, it's enough time to jump into any of these modes where you just want to warm up your fingers, you just want to mess around with your friends, or at least be playing the game, right? There's nothing worse than just sitting in the menu watching the queue time little circle just go and go and go. You start watching this YouTube video. By the time that the queue time starts, you've already forgotten that you even queued up for a game sometimes. So yeah, this is awesome, especially for groups. They takes even longer sometimes for groups if you have like two DPS players with you. Like, forget it sometimes. So
Yeah,
great for that, right? You can still jump into deathmatch or anything like that and practice your widow.
I
I'm
really
all
like
for it.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, even sometimes when Andres and I and maybe Deathblow would be waiting on some friends and we weren't queuing, we would just set up a custom game, close it off, and play deathmatch until they showed up. So it fits really well because you could just do that. You could even do a custom game where you set up a gun game and just play gun game where you're just leveling up your guns, you're changing heroes, whatever you want to do. It's really, really fun. The other cool thing is not only is there practice range with friends, but in Workshop, there's a custom game called Practice Range Mode that you can set up. And I really like this because this could be a chance for Blizzard when they're having a or team 5. No, sorry, this is team 6, aren't they? Team 6 to set up a time between now and Overwatch 2 where they can observe people making workshop things to see what type of things people are getting popularized in training, practice range type stuff. And there's new workshop values for called that allow you to label things under game modes or whatever the current game mode is. You can also say allowing players who are in matchmaking to access this. So that's really cool. Maybe you guys can get some super cool workshop stuff that's allows during that time. But let's talk about the hard and fast numbers. The
But
one
hold on,
the
before we move on, this
Go
is
ahead.
really cool because this goes hand in hand with what they're adding, the while you wait mode.
Yeah.
Because now, by allowing people who are waiting on matchmaking as a setting, the people who just want to really play a custom game that has nothing to do with competitive can do so. But then what I imagine is going to happen is custom lobbies for people who specifically are about to go into comp are going to spark, right? And I could see people making custom workshop modes where it is specifically designed for people to practice or get warmed up before jumping into a game where maybe it's sort of like a faster skirmish or a faster death match, and a death match that doesn't suffer too much if people get thrown away, right? And these lobbies, I imagine, are gonna run 24/7. People just keep joining and leaving as the matchmaker picks them up. So skirmish lobbies basically are gonna spark, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really pumped for just overall stuff to do while we're waiting. Like it doesn't really feel like it affects you until you start climbing when the player distribution gets lower and lower with how many players are at your rank. So if you're way down in bronze or you're starting to get into like upper diamond and masters, you really feel this like on those polar ends. But the closer you get to like upper silver or like mid to low or even upper plat, like that range is really populous. But for me when I'm playing, it doesn't really matter if I'm doing quick play or deathmatch or ranked at my time of day and I'm playing on US servers, unless there's a bunch of Australian folks and Japanese, Chinese, Hong Kong residents, Vietnamese, like Filipino people playing on a US server, I'm not getting a game at any time soon. All right. So let's talk about armor, Andres, and then we're going to talk about the barrier differences for all of the heroes, and then we'll touch on the rest. So the first thing is armor is going back. We're going back from 3 to 5. So what does this mean? Armor damage reduction. This means when you shoot somebody with a single point of damage, you will take half damage, right? So if I shoot you with a McCree shot, my McCree shot does 75 damage, you will take half damage, except there is a cap. So each individual shot or each individual particle or each individual, whatever it's called, projectile that hits you takes half damage or a maximum of 3. So what they've done is they've changed the pellets and the individual shot registry to not be 3 anymore, but rather 5. So if you have armor,
That's
you're
it.
taking a maximum reduction of your damage down to 5 per particle.
It's worth mentioning that this is a reversal. This is how it used to be
Yes.
back in the day, and they
Mm-hmm.
changed that. They changed it from being a maximum reduction of 5 to a maximum reduction of 3, and they're changing it back. And you might ask yourself, but why? It turns out that the change happened originally when goats was a thing. Armor was running rampant, and it was really hard to kill all these heroes already, and armor was just making it even worse. But honestly, armor was not necessarily the thing that was making goats that good. It was just the fact that you could run 3 healers and 3 tanks. But that's no longer the case. Or developer overlords have made sure that goats will never exist again, unless you're in a custom mode where you can allow to play anything you want. But that being said, armor was there, or the existence of this type of armor was there to prevent tanks from dying too fast to characters like Reaper, for example. Because, like Rob,
Hmm.
like you were saying, this reduction happens per point of contact, right? Per pellet,
Per
per
pellet. Yeah.
projectile. So for a character like Farah, this reduction almost
You don't
negligible.
really feel it.
Right.
Yeah.
You throw a rocket, and your rocket will deal all the damage that it does to the person minus 5 points of damage. So for you, that's
You do
that's not a
two
problem.
less damage now rather than three. Two
Yeah,
more.
yeah, exactly. Well, at this point, you do 5 less damage, right? Because
No, I meant like it was three. Now you do two less more. So it's like 3 + 2 is
oh yeah,
yeah.
so yeah, negligible. But then if we go to somebody that's affected a little more, like Soldier 76, you're hitting people constantly with shots, right? Each of your shots, I think, does a maximum of 17 or 19 damage, something like that. But
I
at
will
this
look it up.
point, if you're shooting a Reinhardt, each of those shots is getting reduced 5 points of damage. So instead, you're dealing maybe 13 or 14 damage, right? Per shot.
He does 20 in his optimal range.
There you go. Yeah, they buffed him recently, so he does
Yeah.
20. But now, if you're hitting a target, you're doing 15 per shot. There's a significant reduction, right? Well, Farah only got a little 5 reduction and a huge amount of damage that she deals. Soldier is getting 5 reduction every time. Now we go to a character like Tracer or like Reaper. Even though we don't see it themselves, they're firing a bunch of like mini pellets. Same with Roadhog when his shot explodes. All these mini pellets, all those are penalized by this reduction as well. And I believe that there's a maximum reduction. I think you have less than this, it reduces it by half, you said?
Yeah. So it's kind of a failsafe on both ends. If you have a high damage, so Farah has 120, hers goes down by 5. So it goes down by 5, and her shot does 115 damage. Now, Tracer shots do 12 damage per shot now because she just got buffed. Okay. But when she's outside of her max range, I guess not max range, but when her fall off range kind of gets to its max and you're like really far away and just trying to tickle them, if you did -5 on your damage, you would actually be doing 0 damage to armor. So what they do is they say it's either half or -5 per pellet,
There you go.
whichever number is lower. So for example, her minimum range per bullet is 1.8. Okay. Like it's really low, or even 6 in her optimal range. So we'll use her optimal range. Let's say Tracer's sitting on top of your Reinhardt and each shot is doing 6 damage. Well, if he has armor, each shot is actually doing 3 damage instead. So this is an interesting point. Side note, you would definitely want to go check out your heroes if you're playing them to see how they're affected. But with this change in the armor, guess what? Tracer does the exact same damage that she would be doing if this wasn't reverted, based off of her previous buff to her damage. Because
Yeah,
half of her damage
she might not
is
be
3.
super affected. But yeah,
Yeah.
this goes in order to kind of allow the tanks to not be just busted outright by
Right.
characters like Reaper or even Roadhog, right? It gives them some sort of mitigation. And Brigitte the same, right? It allows some sort of mitigation. For example, if you throw it on a Zenyatta or something. But I think they're reverting it back because now it feels safe, right? Now that ghost is not a
Yeah.
thing, and those incredible damage and healing values are not there anymore. Um, it's safe for them. It allows characters like Reinhardt to survive a little bit better, or Rissa is going to survive a little bit better. Diva has some armor. Winston has a little bit of armor. So all these characters are gonna gain a slight boost
Torbjorn.
in survivability. Torbjorn as well. Brigitte.
Yeah, they're doing some other things too, like like Andres was saying at the end there, like Brigitte and Torb, those heroes that have armor that you don't really notice too much, like that actually is a big deal for them because their effective health goes up a lot by a lot. And then Brigitte seems to be a lot more of an option rather than something that doesn't really feel very. I'll just say it this way because like I know Hitscan put out a video with Violet or Jinx Uwu that we had on a while back for our Brigitte episode, saying that some people that really like playing Brig don't really see her as being that weak, and this is just potentially toning her up a little bit more for the general populace to kind of give it a try and play her more. I don't like playing her in this environment, but that's probably just because I'm bad with her. I don't know, but I don't know. She seems like a good option now.
Her playstyle
All
has
right.
changed drastically, but yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
potential there. Maybe we can bring that up in a future episode because yeah, Brigitte is going under the radar right now, and she
Mm-hmm.
can really be great.
Yeah. So the next thing here we have is we're just gonna each of these heroes that is a tank right now. For Sigma, Orisa, and Reinhardt have a barrier. So each of the barrier heroes got a significant adjustment based off of the barriers and also some collateral. But what we're gonna do first is we're just gonna talk about the barrier changes only, and then we're gonna talk about what other tools they have because I feel like that is a better approach to go at for here. So first of all, Orisa, her previous shield has 900 hit points, okay? And it now has 600 hit points. So they reduced the protective barrier's hit points by 300. Sigma's barrier got the largest change from a 1500 barrier to a 900 barrier. So he got minus 600 on his barrier. And the regeneration ratio from gaining health back on his barrier once it's destroyed or once it's despawned is now 120 health back per second rather than the 150. So not only is it down by 600 hit points, it also regenerates slower by 30 per second. And last, we have Reinhardt getting the second change here, where he got a 2,000 barrier reduced down to 1,600, and his movement speed penalty was increased so that he can reduce when he gets booped by an additional 25% down to 50. So if you try to boop Reinhardt, man, that's good luck because he ain't moving very far.
No, not very far. Yeah, huge
Yeah,
changes. If you look at it from like a ratio perspective, Orisa lost about a third of her barrier. So did Sigma, over a third, and then Reinhardt lost a little bit under a fourth. So Reinhardt was definitely the least affected, but
correct.
overall, you can expect to be killing these barriers about a third of the time quicker. Um, Huge changes. I think that this is definitely addressing this barrier meta that we've been having for a while. I think that some of the fights definitely felt like you were shooting at shields for the most part, and it was becoming almost like an art form watching when you had that opening to be able to get your damage in there.
Take advantage of it.
But definitely was making it really hard for characters like Widowmaker, for example, to be played. She was not getting played a lot, even though she's such an oppressive hero, right? She can be so powerful with all these shields and all these barriers. It's just really hard to get your shots in, and by the time that you do get some shots in, some other heroes have had much more impact on the battlefield than you had. So I think that these changes are definitely going to bring back a little bit of range of characters. Ash, Widowmaker, Soldier, I think are going to feel a bit stronger. Hanzo is going to feel really strong. Any characters that can break barriers are going to feel a little bit stronger as well. But that being said, a lot of these tanks are getting buffs in other areas. So even though the barrier won't be the bulk of what they bring to the table, they're gonna bring other things to the table. Starting with the Reinhardt change I mentioned, booping him is a lot harder now.
Yeah, I misspoke on that actually. Sorry, I gave the numbers for his movement speed penalty while he holds barrier, not the numbers for his knockback resistance. So basically, what Andres is saying is entirely true. The devs are saying that they're trying to make, in short, they're trying to make the barriers a secondary feature of these tanks rather than a primary identification or hero flavor. So Reinhardt and Sigma and Orisa all have barriers. They're barrier labeled tanks, right? but they don't want the barriers to be as iconic for the heroes as much as their other stuff that they bring to the table. They want to have a little bit more of a flair. So Reinhardt's flair is high mobility and high resistance. He's very, I guess, the true tank, right? Like he feels like a tank and he moves like such. So basically, when he's holding his barrier, he can move at half speed instead of quarter speed now. That's a large jump in movement speed while he's holding barrier. And then, like Andres was saying, his knockback resistance was reduced again. So not only the first time he got knockback resistance, now he had that at 30. So that's going to go up by an additional 20%. So not only is he moving 50% slower rather than 25 at 25% speed, he's resisting even more of the incoming stuff. So this guy, Reinhardt's going to feel really different with these
Yeah.
changes.
I'm just speculating here because it's really hard to tell before we get to play a little bit more with it. But Reinhardt does seem like it's coming back to becoming the your go-to tank, right? Like your bread and butter tank is gonna be really effective at doing his job. He can close the gap much easier now. He's still equally good at standing on the point and keeping away the enemy because he's a force to reckon with. His shield is gonna break a little bit faster, but again, he was the one who lost the least amount of barrier health out of all of them. And the fact that he can close the gap a little bit easier, it's much harder to boop him in general. I think that booping a Reinhardt at this point is gonna be undesirable. You're gonna boop him, and the distance that he's gonna cover is gonna be minimal, and he's gonna be back on you really fast. So boops of him are less effective. He can move a little bit faster with the barrier up, so can close that gap a little bit faster, so he can start hammering you where he wants to be. And yeah, he's just gonna be an effective default main tank. That being said, I don't think Orisa or Sigma are that bad either. You want to go through some of the changes for Orisa?
Yeah, let's talk about Sigma. Sigma is quite interesting. So on the back of his experimental barrier kind of going down a bit, like Andres was saying, they basically took a third away from his and Orisa's barrier. His kinetic grasp, or basically his circular diva matrix, as we're now calling it, is a faster cooldown. So he can do this every 10 seconds instead of 13. So he has this way more available to him when his barrier's down, basically, is kind of the idea, is giving him some more survivability when his barrier's dead. And also, he's gaining 20% more shield from his damage that he absorbs. So instead of getting 40% of the damage that he absorbs, he gets 60% back as a shield once the kinetic grasp is down. So there's a quick note on this. This means that it's also more valuable to stun him during this kinetic grasp, because if you can stun him outside of the area of effect of his kinetic grasp, like a Brigitte shield bash, for example, or a flashbang on the backside of him as a McCree, then you are reducing a lot of his survivability. So he gets even more punished by CC. But on the reverse side is, if he's really good at maneuvering his kinetic grasp with his experimental barrier and his survivability, he's going to have this A, available more often, and B, he's going to gain way more health as a result. So very, very good changes for Sigma. And honestly, I can see a weird meta coming out of this where, as a possibility, you could try experimenting a Reinhardt and a Sigma together, because Sigma's damage is quite high, despite his changes. Like with his thing, he basically can continue to throw out his damage orbs all the time. But Andres, what do you think about this? I love playing Sigma, so I'm pretty excited for this kinetic grasp adjustment because it makes him feel a bit more flavorful, a little bit of a different style than Diva.
Yeah, again, moving away from the barrier and knowing that he's gonna have his barrier less available, or that he's gonna be a little bit more stingy with his barrier, right? He can keep it out there for as long. He's gonna have to be a little bit more purposeful when he puts it out. Definitely, the kinetic grasp is gonna come in there to kind of fill in that gap and aid him when he really needs it. To give you sort of an idea, before, within a minute, if you are using kinetic grasp on cooldown, you can fit about 4 of them within 1 minute. Now with the change, you can fit about 6 of them. So quite a generous change, and nobody's using kinetic grasp every cooldown once they have it. But that being said, you are gonna be able to be a little bit more aggressive, right? That cooldown is gonna be on demand more often, and you're gonna be able to have it online more often most of the time. So a skillful ability too. I think that is shifting a focus on ability that the Sigma really needs to think about when to use it and time it at the right time. to get the most value out of it. Getting those shields, getting that absorbing a significant amount of damage with it, I think is gonna be key. So you can't just use it too early or too late, right? At that point, it's not gonna be as effective. So Sigma's really gonna have to step it up a little bit more and rely less on the barriers. But that being said, I think that he's gonna be quite effective still.
Now, Andres, I was going to ask you about this because I think that with this being more available, he can play a bit more like a diva, where he can use it more free just to grab stuff. So, like if there's a high impact cooldown, like a grenade from an Ana or a graviton flux from a Zarya, or a maneuvering quickly Pharah to kind of get behind your team, you can whip around and take it out. You can eat ultimates. You can eat big cooldowns with Sigma now, like the Diva can. Just a little
Yeah,
bit less flexible, of course, but your duration on this ability is a lot longer. So you have a
yeah.
little bit of a different idea on it.
And I would say that ideally, if you are a good Sigma and you're practicing Sigma a lot, this is something that you're already doing and already looking for. But this just means that if you are doing that and you're already kind of catching a lot of those abilities, now you're gonna be able to catch even more, right? Because you're gonna have this
Exactly.
cooldown available more a lot of the time. So yeah, like I said, it's a very skillful ability in that sense where you really have to use it at the right time to get a lot of value out of
Mm-hmm.
it. If you can eat a May ult, if you can eat a Graviton, phew, the value of the ability just skyrocketed, right? You just did a hard counter to an amazing ability right then and there. But it's hard to do, right? It requires practice, it requires game sense, a fast reaction time. So you have to have your muscle memory in order there. So yeah, I think Sigma is getting a little bit more. It's getting harder to play. I think.
Yeah. I also, gosh dang it, I like mentioned this before with Reinhardt, and I said it the wrong way, Andres. His movement speed right now is 50%. So he moves at half speed while holding barrier. He moves at 75% move speed now. Not because the movement speed penalty went down, but from 50 to 25.
Right.
Not, yeah. So I misspoke on that, but in essence, you move faster. The principle's still there.
You
So
guys get the idea.
you guys get it. Sorry, I don't know why these patch notes are so hard to read sometimes, but nonetheless, let's go to Orisa. Orisa basically has more armor now. So she has 250 armor instead of 200, which makes her really, really good for healing because you can get her armor values up higher. She's got higher effective health because of this. Like we were talking about with the armor changes on top of this, Orisa is going to be harder to kill by herself, but also her fusion driver movement speed penalty was reduced from 30% of a slow while firing to 20% of a slow while firing. So a little bit better. Still not great. Like you're still moving slower while you're shooting, but it's not as bad. But this is the second time they've reduced it. So I think they're trying to basically make tanks across the board a bit more mobile. Try not to make them as unappealing because they're immobile. So with the barrier reduction thing, tanks, even when they have their barriers, are going to be encouraged to move with them. This Arisa's health of the barrier going down. Also, they gave her fortify every 8 seconds. Her fortify is the one that lets her reduce knockback by 100%, so she's not knocked back at all, and also affected by slows. And then she will also be reducing the incoming damage by a significant margin with this. And on top of that, she still has armor for longer. So herself, Orisa is becoming more durable and more mobile, but her tool of the barrier is going to be significantly less because she has the same cooldown on her barrier, but the barrier itself has less health. And to be sure, the barrier option, like the cooldown that she already has, is really fast. So this is a little bit less, but she's gonna have a lot more mobile promotion with her kit. So if you're playing Orisa a bit more safe and a bit more kind of like bunkering down, it's going to be a bit better of an option for you to kind of promote mobility with her, using your barriers to kind of help you move from A to B or set up for a brief moment to kind of get people through, or doing it so that you can protect yourself when you don't have your fortify, or um, when you just need a quick heal from your allies. That's kind of what the barriers are going to be more effective at now for her.
Absolutely. I think that Fortify is going to become a huge tool in her arsenal. At 8 seconds, she's basically gonna have her available almost all of the time, and it's gonna become almost like how to kill Orisa around the fortify, right? Because her armor is getting increased. Armor changes are going live, so in general, damaging her is gonna be a little bit harder. Um, she's gonna move faster while she's shooting at you, and at mid, like close to mid range, Orisa can do an insane amount of damage. So killing her, getting up close to her, I think is gonna be really dangerous in general. And then, like you said, once your fortify is down, you still have that shield that you can really play around. And focusing down her shield is gonna be a lot easier. You're gonna be able to destroy it, I think, quite quick now. But that being said, focusing down Orisa is gonna be a lot harder. So
Yeah.
I really want to see how this pans out. I think that Ryan is gonna have a place, but I think that Orisa Sigma is still going to have a place, and I think that playing Orisa in
Just gonna look
general
different.
is still gonna be good. She's still gonna be a really good hero, but to me, she seems like it's gonna be all about that damage, all about that putting that pressure with her really quick because it's so hard to kill you, right? With the fortify, and you can still do your shield dance to reduce even more damage. By the time they kill your shield, your fortify is up again. So you can really alternate between those two to keep yourself alive for a while shooting a ton of damage and moving a ton, right? Like
Yeah.
you're not as slow, so you can dodge more damage again as you're shooting or closing gaps as you're shooting a lot easier. So I want to see how this pans out. Definitely barrier meta is going to minimize by a lot because either
You have
way,
more openings between the barriers breaking is kind
exactly.
of the idea.
The barriers are gonna break faster. They're gonna have longer cooldowns. They're not gonna regenerate as fast. For example, with Sigma, so you're not gonna be shooting as barriers as much. But it doesn't mean that these heroes are gonna be as easy to kill as you think they're gonna be.
Now, if I'm remembering this properly, Fortify, when you use it, the cooldown for the ability doesn't go until Fortify is complete, correct? Like you hit the button and it
I was
highlights it.
just thinking that. I am not sure either. I can't confirm. But if you guys can let us know, tweet at us or let us know through Discord, because I am
Yeah.
curious. If the I my guess is that the cooldown starts running when it runs out. Because if not, you would basically have Fortify up like every like 4 seconds, and that would be insane.
Yeah, while we're talking about this, I'm going to boot up the game just to make sure, but we're going to work on the assumption that when you use Fortify, at the end of the ability is when the cooldown starts, so that you still have to wait the full duration of 8 seconds.
Hmm.
But you basically, for 4 full seconds, from heroes that get their damage reduced by half rather than just the 5, you're taking 1/4 of the damage from tracers and reapers and bastions, like, and soldiers. That's insane to me. Like, you're gonna be taking 1/4 of the damage from those people for 4 full seconds. Actually insane. And you have a little bit of a longer window where that's going to be happening. So let's talk a little bit more about some other tanks, because Diva got a little bit of an adjustment as well. Why can I not find my window? There we go. Okay. We're skipping more for just a quick second for those of you reading along in the patch notes while you're listening. Diva's matrix got the cooldown was decreased from 2 to 1.5. So basically, when Diva's matrix is used, there's a short window of time penalty where you have to wait before you can matrix again. Because before it was just like, matrix is on, so you get to do nothing for this time period, and then they can flick it on and off and get a lot of value from it. But now the over time they nerfed Diva a bunch with this matrix to kind of give you a window of time where once you see the matrix, you have about 2 full seconds before they can do it again. So now they're reducing
Yeah.
that by 1/4. They're reducing it by a half second so that she has it more available, because Diva's not getting a whole lot of play. So they're trying to encourage people to play Diva more, basically.
Yeah,
What do you think about this?
this was a goats change. Diva Matrix
Yeah.
was insanely powerful in goats. It was preventing a ton of damage. It would make it even harder to kill people. But now that there's only 2 tanks, I think that they feel safe to kind of bring the barrier to be a little bit more responsive and really be able to catch that damage when it really needs to catch it, right? Um, I think that is a good change. I think that Diva doesn't feel oppressive right now, or Matrix doesn't feel super oppressive right now. Going down to 2 tanks, I think she's in a better spot.
Yep, definitely. I just checked it, and it does not start the cooldown until you finish the ability.
Okay,
So
good. Yeah,
thank
that's what I
God.
thought.
Yeah, that would be absurdly oppressive if it wasn't. All right, let's go back to Moira. Moira's healing has been reduced. This is a massive change. Um, the one thing that she does super well is been reduced. So basically, when she heals you, each time that you get hit by her primary heal heals you at 4. Now it's going to be 3.25. So basically, if you put that to a per second value, if you're clicking and holding for a full second, your heal goes from 80 to 65. That is a large number of per second healing that's getting reduced. And the reasoning was that it's too powerful in groups, especially when a barrier on your team is not present from the enemy team. You can heal a large swath of people in a short area by just tapping it for a quick second. That's like 100 base health that you can just hit like 6 targets, and then you're charging your ultimate ridiculously fast. So you're going to feel this in 2 ways. One, your allies are going to heal a little bit slower, and you're not going to be able to kind of build your ultimate faster. Those are the kind of the 2 things that get really affected by this change. Andres?
Yeah, I think that it needed it. I think that they, again, this is a numbers thing. They probably looked at the numbers. They saw it from Overwatch League. They saw it from the ladder after people started emulating Overwatch League, and they were just like, yeah, this is a little bit out of hand. She's healing more than a lot of heroes, and I think it's a meta evolvement, right? Like the people learn to play around Moira, and Moira's learn that potential that they have. As long as you're just spraying a large number of people, man, your healing just skyrockets. And she's one of the heroes that can still get her coalescence incredibly fast by a combination of her primary heal and her healing orbs. Yeah, so I could definitely
Crazy.
see this coming. So far, this this patch notes or this patch coming up is really addressing a lot of the issues that people have been complaining for a while. So I'm happy to see that. There's a couple changes here for some other heroes that I think are not as necessarily relevant to the meta, but I think that they are a response to what might happen after some of these changes go live. For example,
Yeah.
Widowmaker, the grappling hook, the cooldown is increasing from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. I think that they're anticipating Widowmaker becoming more attractive and becoming more used now that the barriers are not as much of a problem. Um, and this allows for some counterplay, right? Especially because with the grappling hook at 10 seconds, she can reposition herself very often. At 12, it's a little less often every minute, right? So at least you allow characters that are more mobile to catch up to her, or even characters like Winston, to keep up with her and keep her
Yeah.
under reign.
It's removing her overall total level of mobility per minute by 1, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Like she can move 1 time less per minute kind of idea. Torbjorn got his cooldown decreased from 12 to 10, which is one of the things that we brought up on our Torbjorn Going Deep revised. This is something that they mentioned that as a core mechanic for playing new Torb is this ability is kind of your centrifugal force, your main thing that you need in order to do things. And making it 10 seconds puts you pretty close to the 8 second wish that they asked for. So we're getting there closely, and with the armor changes also on the back of this, could be very useful. So keep an eye on Torb. He could be one of the heroes that could flex into a main slot depending on how the tanks roll in.
I'm not a super big fan of this change. I think that they're addressing one of his weaknesses, which is once the pay or the turret is gone and his overload is under cooldown, he's not one of the best heroes, right? He can be countered really easily. He can get killed quite easily. The reason why he's hard to dive is because of his overload. But once that is gone, he's an easy target overall, especially if his turret isn't out of the way. But I think that they're not addressing like the core problem. They're basically just telling like, well, Thor by himself is kind of weak, so now he can overload more often. But overload is an insanely powerful ability, and I wish they would left overload as it is, maybe even increase the cooldown. But give regular Torbjorn maybe a little
More
bit more
stuff.
oomph, right? A little bit more power, a
Yeah.
little more staying power. That maybe he's a little bit more of a threat when he doesn't have any of his cooldowns. But that being said, they're playing around a little bit over his molten core, um,
Yeah.
or overload, not molten core. Yeah, now you
Well, they
can.
buffed Molten Core in the last patch, so we have
Yeah,
two
that's right.
different
Yeah,
separate buffs.
that's
Yeah.
right. He can molten core more often, and now he can overload more often. So yeah, he gets to use his cooldowns more.
Now, I will say, like, one thing that I like you bringing that up, Andres, is like, I think that they should adjust his hitbox. I think that's one thing that they mentioned when we had the guys on,
Mm-hmm.
between Fui and Kuro. They both said that hitbox is awful.
Yeah,
Like,
he's very
just
easy to shoot, very easy to focus down. His head hitbox is easy because it's like kind of sticking out in part of his body is very low. So even though you hit his
you
chest, you
shoot him
can
in the beard and
sometimes
he
yeah,
dies.
yeah, exactly. So yeah,
Andres, do you want to cover
overall,
this Genji change next? That seems really into your avenue.
sure. This one I think is on the smaller side. Genji's ammo got increased from 24 to 30. But I think that this is because a lot of people are getting survivability in this patch. Torbjorn, Orisa, Reinhardt, Sigma, all these people are getting more tools to kind of keep themselves alive, minus the barriers. But honestly, the barriers were probably Genji's least concern, right? It was the fact that nobody else could get in and nobody else was playing dive, so he couldn't just dive by himself. But getting damage around barriers was never Genji's problem. Now the problem is going to be finishing people off. With all these damage mitigation, all these cooldown reductions, he's gonna need a little bit more ammo to be able to maybe finish the job, and that's what they're giving him. But overall, not a big change. I think they're scared to change Genji. Genji can be such a powerful hero in the hands of really skilled players. Um, and I think they're trying to see if they can get dive back into the meta. Because if you can get dive back into the meta, Genji is not in a terrible spot.
Yeah, I don't really think this is much more than just like you're saying, Andres. You need to get in there. You need to finish somebody off. And if you're spamming shields or you're spamming just throwing out shurikens, you get you get two more shots because you throw
Yep,
shurikens in sets of three, whether it's primary or secondary.
you get
So
two
you
more
get
shots. That's what this
two more
changes.
shots. It's nothing huge, okay?
No.
Just earth shattering Genji changes, two more hits. Yeah. Like, now Zarya's getting a this is a weird change because it's half of what they changed her from to revert some of it back. Like she had like a little bit of how the particle cannon secondary fire, the little bombs, the particle bombs that she would fire would work with her energy. They adjusted that. They also adjusted the explosion radius and how much ammo it costed. So basically, what they did now is they're leaving in the energy modifying stuff that they changed and to increase her damage, but they're reverting the explosion radius from 2 to 2.5 so that the radius is now larger area of effect so that the energy can kind of extend for a larger area. So even though your energy is still modified in the explosion, like it's not the same power from the center to the edge of the explosion, similar to a fair rocket. You get more rewarded for direct hits, type of a thing. Um, when the explosions happen, you're going to be hitting more people in general. If you hit a big space, or you're going to have a higher hit registry at the edge of the barrier because it's a little bit larger, or not the barrier, but the edge of the explosion radius. And then on top of that, the ammo cost is reduced. You get one more shot from this. This is really good. I know Zarya's of when I play Zarya, I don't play her a whole lot, but when I do, I always hate how much when I'm playing Zarya and Roadhog especially, you have to reload so much of these heroes. It's unreal.
Yeah, compared to others, yeah. Although you're reloading a lot with them, maybe Zen, you're not as much because you're pacing your shots so much. Um, that being said, yeah, a little buff to her secondary fire. I think they want to bring it in line with her primary fire. It's just giving it a little bit more love. I think it got reduced again because of the goats meta. When everyone's clumped up and your secondary fire is hitting like 5 heroes at a time, then yeah, the damage is gonna get way out of hand. But I think that now that that is not happening as much, giving her a little bit of love here so she can contest at range a little bit easier. I
Finish
think it's
off
fine with
targets.
me. Yeah, overall, this patch is really good. Aside from this, there's a bunch of bug fixes. They're adding some more stuff that they're fixing in the bug realm, but we wouldn't touch too much into those. You guys can look into the patch yourselves if you want to see what changes are going on in there. But overall, they're addressing a lot of the feedback that the community has been giving him on barriers. We're getting a fresh new patch for next Overwatch League because this actually will shake up the meta enough that I think that we're gonna see some new compositions, some new stuff getting tried out. Um, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more Brigitte again. Now that
Yeah.
everyone's shields are getting toned down a little bit back down. Doomfist, we might see some changes. I'm interested to see if he's still going to be the preferred with Reaper now that the armor changes are coming in and some range heroes are going to be a little bit more preferred. Now, Doomfist still has a lot of mobility, but when you have Widowmakers, when you have McCrees, when you have Ashes that are not spread out all over the place, you have to start fearing a little bit for your life a little bit more. So, interested to
I
see what
think
happens
Ash
there.
could honestly be Ash and McCree are going to be much more of a threat moving forward if Doomfist does get toned down in particular, just because like she and McCree are really they have a hard time dealing with Doomfist, and so if Doomfist is less populous, then they are a little bit more free to run in these deathball comps. Reinhardt being more popular, Moira's heal dipping is one big thing that I think is going to help Ash's explosion a lot because that thing is so annoying for healers to deal with. And even when Moira has a healing over time effect, and as well as like a big burst of heal when you get hit, that being lowered overall is a huge boon to Ashe. So some of the byproducts of the Moira changes and how you have to look about damage. The thing I mentioned about with Tracer, where her damage getting reduced basically is not changed at all from her previous buff, is really exciting for me because I love playing Tracer. So I'm hoping Tracer maybe come back a little bit. Also, I had somebody tell me that to look at Winston's barrier. Winston's barrier is effectively the same as Arisa's now. I'm pretty sure it might even be stronger.
I think so. Yeah, they're
Winston,
about they are gonna feel about the same. Yeah,
yeah, I'm gonna pull it up real quick. Just
at
yeah,
least
it's 700
breakage
health.
wise. Yeah, breakage
Yeah,
wise.
700 health,
Yeah.
and it lasts. I think it actually lasts longer. So Winston's hype, man. Let's go.
I'm saying dive might be seeing a little resurgence. We'll see.
Yeah, but again, the armor change is gonna make overall survivability for tanks just feel better, and I really like that. Especially, I felt like this is something they should have done when they went with 222. But I think that even with all of the crazy changes they instituted with 222, they were pretty conservative, all things considered. You know, like the
Yeah,
Brig rework and all that.
a lot of people might disagree with me here, but I think I'm kind of glad that they didn't do a lot of drastic changes right away with 222, and they sort of like let it sink in and see like what would actually happen, right? What would be
Right.
the offenders that would rise up in the 222, and now after some time they're addressing this, especially specifically after Overwatch League, right? I think that they were very weary of not messing with the balance too fast coming up with the
Mm-hmm.
finals and everything because I think it would have been a lot messier if they would have done that. A lot of people would
Yeah.
have been upset. A lot of people would have done a lot of what ifs at that point.
Yep.
So I think that this was the way to go. Even though a lot of people were really tired of the two shield meta and
Right.
they wanted some changes. I think that this is it. I think they should have said something though, at least on we are going to address the double shield meta and just hang on. But they kept quiet until now.
Yeah, I mean, after Overwatch League stopped with their finals, you basically have BlizzCon and then 2 weeks, and we had this patch. So it's pretty fast, I'd say. I know that people are like really antsy to get changes so quickly, but like I kind of appreciate that they let certain things sit for at least a competitive season on the regular ladder as well as the Overwatch League to try to time things properly. I do like that. And this map pool also being a significant change is going to be really interesting for evaluation moving forward when we get push. I know Andres and I talked about this at long form with Blevins and DB, because now when they have a map pool, the heroes that you choose and the balance changes that are instituted, some heroes may not be popular at all in like assault, but then you like roll into control or you roll into push, you got a completely new swath of meta heroes. So different game modes and different map pools are going to be really, really important for people evaluating how to improve in the game and what heroes they should be choosing when they want to start climbing in those upper echelons in particular, as well as looking at synergies within their team. Sometimes you don't even look at the synergy within the teams. You just look at what map you're playing. You're like, that's what I want to play, instead of worrying about your team. Sometimes that's the right call.
Absolutely.
I think that's basically it.
I think that's going to do it.
A little bit of a shorter episode for you guys this week, a little bit over an hour instead of the 2-hour extravaganza we gave you last week. So hopefully you appreciate that. But we will see you guys on the flip flop. Andres, where can people find you?
If you want to find me, you can do so on Twitter at I Play Games.
If you want to find me, I'm at NotRob on Twitter and Instagram. And you can find me at NotRobMay, streaming actually this week, hopefully. I'm going to be streaming today at some point. I just picked up Zelda, A Link's Awakening, and Pokemon Sword. So I'm going to be playing Sword for the first time with barely any spoilers.
I want to switch so bad, dude. You're just making me jealous over here.
I'm going to play Switch, but I got to go play some D&D with our good Patreon supporter at the sponsorship level. He invited me to go play some Dungeons & Dragons with his home group, so I'm playing an NPC bard and enjoying that. And speaking of our Patreon supporters at the Diamond level, big shout out to Refire Shazir, who's the one who invited us and has been a longtime supporter of the crew. We also have Shepard, Chris DePlaya, and Sensei Overwatch. Thank you guys so much for your top-level support. If you want to support at a lower level, that's totally fine. We have those coaching options for you at the Plat level. And also, big shout-out to Bam Boom Bang, which I believe I missed because of timing on when we get updates from our iTunes stuff. But thank you for your support on leaving us a 5-star iTunes review. He's a console player, left a very long, nice review for us about transitioning from console to PC and how the show really helped. And a special shout out to Clearly, or CS, our console expert on PlayStation 4. And big shout out to Danny5 YOLO from South Africa. This is our second ever South Africa review, and says, hands down the best, most informative, fresh, entertaining Overwatch podcast. Really love the conversational approach they have to covering some pretty complex topics. Intro song gets me excited when Andres goes, "What's up, what's up, what's up?" I always say it back on my morning drive to work. But for real, thank you guys. It was a bigger scene. If there was a bigger scene in South Africa and I had the time and the money, I would totally just subscribe on Patreon. Would definitely recommend this to anyone keen on learning more.
Hey, listening to the show and just letting us know that you enjoy the episode is plenty of support for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your 5-star iTunes review. Even if it is in South Africa, we do get them. We do get them. So I really deeply appreciate that, as well as the Spark on YT or YouTube, I'm guessing, on United States, saying that we are a great podcast host. Only listened to a few episodes, but they have taught me a lot of new things. The DPS Know Your Role episode helped me a lot with my DPS and helped me climb ladder. Thanks so much. So again, big props to Andres, because this is totally his brainchild, and I definitely spaced out on this Know Your Role type thing. It was a great idea and a cool thing we want to revisit as much as we can, because knowing your role is really, really important if you're trying to learn a swath of heroes. If you guys want to find anything and everything about Omnic Lab, that's on our website. We've got merch, we've got episodes, we've got a really good search engine if you're looking for specific shows. If you're looking for specific guests, even, you can search it there. You want to find us on Twitter, you can get updates on when we're going live, all that stuff. Please join the Discord. I still haven't quite fixed a couple things, but we are boosted. Our Discord is boosted to the right level, so I'm going to try to get some of those things set up for our server with our graphics and all that. Please subscribe to us. We'll see you guys next week. Don't be a rat, be a scientist. Bye, guys.
I was starting the song a little early. Bye.
That's okay. Bye.
I have nothing more to teach you. The rest you must learn for yourself. Walk in harmony, my student.
Adios, everybody.